Well, a very good evening and thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and Shireen is with us to take us through the top stories of the day.
Market action of the day. Bulls making a strong comeback after losing for 8 straight sessions, backed by a strong last-hour rally as crude prices cooled off. Benchmark indices today ending the day with gains of more than 1% each. So there you have it. The Nifty reclaiming 10,700. The Sensex put on about 400 points today. And the broader markets also followed suit, with the Nifty Bank and the Nifty Mid-Cap closing 1% high. Of course, watch out for the Nifty Bank tomorrow. We now have that recapitalization news, which is official. It is a setback for Reliance Communications chairman Anil Ambani. The Supreme Court has held him guilty of contempt in the Ericsson case and has ordered Reliance Communication to pay 450 crore rupees to Ericsson within 4 weeks. Failing this, Anil Ambani will be sent to jail for 3 months. Ashmit Kumar, who's been tracking this case closely and was in court during the hearing today, joins us now. Ashmit, take us through the fine print of the order, a brief background to the case and the implications.
Right, so they have money to pay Rafale, but they don't have money to repay us. That extraordinary citizens of our country have taken the courts for a ride. These were the arguments with which Ericsson opened its contempt application against Anil Ambani. It seems to have worked. These arguments seem to have struck home. The Apex Court holding just this morning that Anil Ambani indeed is guilty of contempt of court, contempt of the highest court of the country. Some very sharp words, some interesting riders that have been slipped in. We'll get to that in just a bit. But first, a look at the genesis of the crisis. Now, in the year 2018, there was a payment dispute between the two sides over 1,600 crore rupees. They agreed to settle that amount for 550 crore rupees, with RCOM agreeing to pay that amount of 550 crore rupees. And towards that end, RCOM, as well as 2 other ADAG companies in the month of May, had submitted an undertaking before the NCLAT where they clarified that they will cough up that amount of 550 crore rupees. The interesting caveat being it wasn't conditional. There were no linkages with that undertaking, but that changed just a few months later. In the month of August, the same 3 companies submitted the same undertaking before the Apex Court. What had changed, however, is that it was made conditional. We'll pay that, we'll undertake to make that payment of 550 crore rupees provided the deal with Jio goes through, and that is something that the Apex Court seems to have taken objection to. The Supreme Court records that we did not accept this linked payment, this linked undertaking. We did not accept that, and that we gave a very firm deadline of December 12th. Further, what the Apex Court also records as a part of its judgment, and this is interesting here, the Supreme Court judgment records that while before us, RCOM had argued that it is impossible to make that payment of 550 crore rupees, Supreme Court records that parallel to this case, RCOM had reached out to Ericsson saying that if Ericsson withdraws its contempt and arbitration proceedings, RCOM will be able to make that payment of 550 crore rupees. Now, it is these inconsistencies that seem to have irked the Apex Court, the Supreme Court recording that the undertaking was false, that they had absolutely no intentions to pay up, that Anil Ambani had a cavalier attitude in terms of this undertaking that had been submitted on affidavit before the highest court of the country. And towards that end, above and beyond just holding that he is guilty of contempt of court, the Supreme Court has now directed that to purge that contempt, it's important for RCOM to cough up that amount of 450 crore rupees. And not just that, this amount has to be coughed up within 4 weeks' time, failing which the Supreme Court has clearly provided that Anil Ambani, in case of a failure to make that payment, will head straight to jail for 3 months' time. And not just that, the Supreme Court has also slapped a disciplinary action, so to say, a penalty of 1 crore rupees on each of the 3 directors, including Anil Ambani. So some strong action being taken. The big takeaway essentially being that Anil Ambani held guilty of contempt of court. The Supreme Court recording that contempt needs to be purged by payment of 450 crore rupees, failing which Anil Ambani will head straight to jail.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us with that. Joining us now to take this discussion forward, Mohit Saraf, Senior Partner at Luthra & Luthra, and Corporate Lawyer H.P. Ranina. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Mr. Ranina, if I could start by asking you, what sort of a precedent does this order set? And specifically in this matter, because this is a company that's already now been taken to the insolvency process, what is the option left? Because the court has basically said you need to pay up the 550 crore rupees in 4 weeks, or there is a 3-month jail term awaiting Anil Ambani. Now, the company had said they don't have the money to start with. So where does this leave Reliance Communication and Anil Ambani?
Well, it's a very difficult situation. Obviously, Anil Ambani is in hot waters. There's no question about it. And the important point is that the Reliance Communication has also been held in contempt, and they have been directed to pay this amount of money. So if Reliance cannot pay on the ground that it is already in the NCLT and there are liquidation proceedings are going to begin, they will have to bring in the money into this company. There is no other solution, because Anil Ambani cannot settle out of court and now say that I will pay on behalf of Reliance Communication, unless the court then, revises its order. Therefore, the company will have to be funded, and the only way it can be funded is by Anil Ambani bringing it money from his own pocket, putting it into Reliance and paying off this amount within the next 4 weeks.
Ericsson, in this case, is an operational creditor. Now, what kind of a precedence will this throw up, the Supreme Court order in this matter, as far as the rights of operational creditors are concerned?
It does raise a vexatious issue, but the important point is that this procedure, this process of insolvency was started much later. This undertaking was given by Anil Ambani to the court before he went into NCLT, and therefore the court's order stands. You see, otherwise what will happen is in future people will give a commitment and then take the company to NCLT and try to evade the court's order. This cannot be done.
Mohit, on the first question, what are the options now before Anil Ambani and Reliance Communications? The company has said it doesn't have the money to pay the dues to Ericsson, which is why we're at this pass today. Now, Mr. H.P. Ranina's contention is that Anil Ambani will have to bring in money into Reliance Communication in order to clear the dues as per the Supreme Court order. Reliance Communication has basically put out a 2-page release saying that they will comply with the Supreme Court order. What are the options before Arcom and Anil Ambani?
Actually, after the Supreme Court order, there's really not too many options for Anil Ambani Group. They have to probably pay money. But I think one important issue which we need to look at really here is something else. Contempt is for actually willful disobedience. And we all know that the company has got into insolvency. They have approached courts multiple times that they are not able to complete the transaction with Reliance. So there was actually a real difficulty, a commercial difficulty. And Supreme Court actually earlier also, few years back also had said very clearly that if there is a contempt proceeding, but there is a serious difficulty, then the contempt proceedings are not maintainable. So therefore, I don't understand, because I don't have facts and figures with me, that the court to hold that it is a willful default and therefore he's liable for contempt is a little bit mixed, because yes, as Mr. Raina said, that yes, the they have gone to insolvency, they have filed for IBC, but they have really not, the petition has not been admitted.
Mr. Ranina, and this has been the argument that Mukul Rohatgi, the counsel for Reliance Communication, has made in court, and for Anil Ambani has made in court, that look, they were hoping that the deal with Reliance Jio would close. The deal with Jio has not closed, and hence they haven't been able to honor the commitment that was made to Ericsson. This point that Mohit Saraf raises, that the company has eventually filed for bankruptcy, I mean, has decided to take the company to insolvency, suggests very clearly that they don't have the funds. So willful default, the question that Mohit Saraf is raising, how do you look at it?
Well, after considering all these facts and circumstances, Justice Nariman has come to the decision that this amounts to willful default. On the ground that, look, you gave a commitment. Maybe you thought that you would be able to raise money from some other source, from sale of spectrum or for whatever reason. But that is your problem. But you gave a commitment to the court that you will pay, and you have to stick to this commitment. So really, it's more of a personal liability. In fact, that was a big mistake which Anil Ambani made of giving the commitment to the court. They could have just said that, look, we are not able to pay, we will take the matter to NCLT. But having given a commitment, then he has to stand by it, and there can be no excuse for this default. That is the point which the court has made.
Yeah, Mohit. Absolutely. Mohit, that is the point that's being made by the Supreme Court in its order, and that's the point of view of H.P. Ranina as well, that there was an undertaking that was given by Anil Ambani to Ericsson by Reliance Communication, and hence the court is saying you ought to have honored it. But on the issue of secured financial creditors as well, because that's the point that you raise, as well as operational creditors like Ericsson, what kind of a precedence will this throw up now as far as the IBC process is concerned?
Actually, it will not mess up the IBC process, because the NCLT proceeding has not started. The company has not been admitted under IBC. So really, this is pre-IBC. only the company has decided to go to the NCLT for under insolvency proceeding. So it will not mess up, but if you think about it, it does give, really at the end of the day, whether it's Anil Ambani or anybody who pays that company, will be paying on behalf of RCom. And therefore, that money is being paid to operational creditor as a superior right to secured creditors. To that extent, secured creditors' rights are getting affected. But I think one more important thing here is, really at the end of the day, the Supreme Court has multiple times said that they should not get into looking at the group. They should look at the company. Now, whatever said and done, that this is the agreement with Ericsson was entered by RCom. This was an RCom liability. RCom is in insolvency. Now, to get a CEO of a company personally liable and asking a group to pay, and I think there is a clear judgment and judicial precedent that courts will typically not pierce corporate veil unless in case of a fraud. And we all know there is no fraud going on here. There is a commercial difficulty. There is a problem. So I would say that yes, all what Mr. Dave made, all these arguments, that the court did rely on that. But really, this is not a group insolvency. This is a company insolvency. So if they are investing in new businesses, that doesn't mean anything. So I would say this is a little bit exceptional, but we need to look at it. That was it a conditional, unconditional undertaking? We need to look at a lot of facts to come to a conclusion, but it looks a little far-fetched.
HP Ranina and Mohit Saraf, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. The other big story tonight, Sajjan Jindal's JSW has ruled out a joint bid to acquire SR Steel along with Vedanta. Now, this comes just a day after Vedanta issued a similar denial. However, in a statement to CNBC TV 18, Sajjan Jindal has reiterated his support for the rulers of SR. In fact, going on to say that JSW is ready to buy 26% stake in SR Steel if the Ruyas manage to pull out the company from the insolvency proceedings. So remember, even previously, Sajjan Jindal has backed the Ruyas, saying that if they are able to provide the money, then they should be allowed to do so, given that they are the current promoters. But this is very different, not just backing the Ruyas, but also saying that they will be willing to pick up a 26% stake in SR Steel if the Ruyas manage to pull the company out of insolvency proceedings. Ritu Singh, who broke that story, joins us now with more. Ritu.
A fresh twist in the case of SR Steel's insolvency case, where, do remember, it is no secret that Jindals have always been very keen to acquire SR Steel under the bankruptcy process and had tried bidding for the company along with the New Metal Consortium in the first round, where their bid was then rejected by the Supreme Court for not paying up the dues of SR Group companies. Now we're given to understand, in the light of various reports that have emerged, that the Jindals may try to attempt a fresh bid for SR Steel. We reached out to Sajjan Jindal himself, who has clarified to CNBC TV 18 that at this point of time, JSW Group is not looking to make any fresh bid, either independently or with Vedanta or any other partner, to acquire SR Steel. But, and this is very important, the clarification that they've made is this: in the event that the lenders and the courts accept Ruya's settlement offer for the company to withdraw it from insolvency under Section 12A by offering to pay 54,000 crore rupees to the creditors, in the event that proposal is accepted by the courts and the banks, the Jindals are ready to support the Ruyas by offering to take up as much as 26% stake in the company. So a very important statement coming in from Sajjan Jindal himself, that they will back the Ruyas in case their bid is admitted. But for now, no fresh bid will be made by the Jindals to acquire SR Steel.
All right, Ritu, thanks very much. That is the CNBC TV 18 exclusive. It's staying with the SR Group. ArcelorMittal is believed to be in talks with the SR Group to buy its power and port assets. Sources tell us that ArcelorMittal is keen on acquiring SR's Hazira port and Hazira and Mahan power units. Remember, SR Steel draws 600 megawatt power supply from Hazira and Mahan power units. Sources also tell us that even SR Group wants ArcelorMittal to perhaps pick up these assets. It is in talks with lenders to release guarantees. However, the two sides haven't reached an agreement on asset valuation yet, so this is still preliminary. The government has approved the recapitalization of 12 public sector banks to the tune of 48,000 crore rupees. Now, in this round of recapitalization, Corporation Bank and Allahabad Bank will get the lion's share of the funds, and the government believes that this will help them exit the prompt corrective action framework. Remember, the decision is with the Reserve Bank. Sapna joins us now with the details. Sapna, who's getting how much?
Well, the policy direction and the objective of the recapitalization plan for public sector banks, that policy direction on the part of the government is extremely clear. 4 major categories of banks that the government is looking at now, and if you look at this 48,000 crores worth of tranche that has just come in for PSBs, here the major share is going to those banks which are expected to come out of the PCA framework, namely Allahabad Bank and Corporation Bank. The second category that the government has also taken care of is those banks which have come out but need to continue to remain strong. So basically Bank of India and Bank of Maharashtra. Interestingly enough, Oriental Bank of Commerce is not part of that list. The third would be the non-PCA banks. However, they are in breach of the PCA 1 threshold, namely Punjab National Bank, Andhra Bank, Syndicate Bank and Union Bank. So to prevent these banks from going into PCA, again the recapitalization is being given. The last category contains those banks which will continue to be in the PCA framework for some time, namely UCO, United, IOB and Central Bank. Here again recapitalization has been given. Over 1 lakh crore worth of capital infusion has already happened in FY19. Apart from this, the government is also keeping a buffer of around 5,000 odd crores for any unforeseen contingency or probably as growth capital for the amalgamated entity of Bank of Baroda.
Infusion by the government today, much awaited for Andhra Bank as well. Could you tell us what it will do to your, tier 1, tier 2 ratios? How do you see this impacting the bank?
So as it is, you see our the latest results. We are not really breaching any one of the things. Is that so? We are just closer to that. The capital is more for the likelihood of the aging provisions that would occur, which we have also indicated that. So that would be needed for that. Part of it would be used, but still we'd be having some amount of growth capital to go forward. So it's a very welcome thing that we got it at this point of a time, and I'm very sure that Andhra Bank, as we stated earlier, with a NIM of 325 and a consistent operating profit being at around 5,200 per annum. It's the ones with the aging provision issues goes on and the slippages could be contained a little further in the smaller accounts, as most of the corporate accounts have fallen, and the further slippages in the corporate account is going to be very, very minimal. We think we are in a better placed position.
While the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is in India, Prime Minister Modi held bilateral talks with the Crown Prince, and both leaders addressed a joint press conference today. Prime Minister Modi raised the Pulwama attack and called terrorism a threat to humanity. In his press statement, the Saudi Crown Prince did not mention the Pulwama attack or Pakistan by name, but he did say that terrorism is a common concern and that Saudi will cooperate with India in every possible way to fight it.
पुलवामा में हुआ बर्बर आतंकवादी हमला इस मानवता विरोधी खतरे से दुनिया पर छाए कहर की एक और क्रूर निशानी है। इस खतरे से प्रभावशाली ढंग से निपटने के लिए हम इस बात पर सहमत हैं कि आतंकवाद को किसी भी प्रकार का समर्थन दे रहे देशों पर सभी संभव दबाव बढ़ाने की आवश्यकता है। अतिवाद के खिलाफ सहयोग और इसके लिए एक मजबूत कार्य योजना की भी जरूरत है। मुझे खुशी है कि सऊदी अरब और भारत इस बारे में साझा विचार रखते हैं।
जहां तक एक्सट्रीमिज्म और टेररिज्म की बात है, जो हमारे कॉमन कंसर्न है, हम ये बात बताना चाहते हैं भारत को बताना चाहते हैं कि हम आपके साथ हर तरह का कोऑपरेशन करेंगे, चाहे वो इंटेलिजेंस शेयर हो और न सिर्फ भारत बल्कि सारे जो हमारे आसपास हैं सबके साथ मिलकर काम करेंगे, जो हमारे आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए भविष्य रोशन भविष्य को सिक्योर करेंगे। हम आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करते हैं, आपने जो पॉजिटिव रोल प्ले किया है।
Parikshit now joins us with more highlights from the Saudi Crown Prince's India visit. He has some special guests with him to take that discussion forward. Over to you, Parikshit.
Joining us now to take this forward are Mohammad Ayub, non-resident senior fellow at Center for Global Policy and Professor Emeritus at Michigan State University. We're also joined by former ambassadors K.C. Singh, Anil Trigunayath, and also author, journalist and political scientist Jonna Blank. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Ambassador Trigunayath, I'd like to begin with you and with those pictures of Prime Minister Narendra Modi receiving Mohammed bin Salman at the airport. He broke protocol. This is a courtesy reserved for very special heads of state. What do you think is the larger message?
Is that Saudi Arabia is an important and strategic partner for India, and which is there for our energy security, for it is in the neighborhood and for the welfare of the Indian nationals who are almost 2.7 million there. And it also says that we are looking for greater investment from Saudi Arabia, which has already been declared as over $100 billion, 5 times that what he had promised in Pakistan. So we feel that in terms of Saudi Arabia is the biggest economy. Now, the hugging and receiving the Prime Minister has broken protocol 9 times before in several cases, and those are all special countries, and it is to convey a special message that you matter for us and that we stand by together.
Right. Ambassador Casey Singh, to get you in, India was attaching a lot of importance to this visit. One, to increase investments and bilateral ties with Saudi Arabia, and also because of the Pulwama attack. The Prime Minister underlined Pakistan's complicity in the Pulwama terror attacks. But do you think they are getting support from the Saudi Crown Prince?
It's difficult to say. Even Prime Minister did not use the word Pakistan. He just used Pulwama. And of course the Crown Prince used neither. He just kept it in a very anodyne way to, what is called motherhood and apple pie. We're all against terrorism. Everybody has his favorite terrorism, which he wants to oppose. For them, terrorism means Iran. So, you don't know which terrorism they're talking about. Does he really mean the terrorism that is affecting us? Because much of that money and support comes from within Saudi Arabia to many of these groups.
Exactly. I'd like to get in Mohammed Ayub at this point. Mohammed Ayub, in your piece, you have said that India will not be able to wean Riyadh away from Pakistan because of the strategic importance of Pakistan for Saudi Arabia. Why do you feel that? Please tell our audience.
Yeah, I'll tell that. But before I say that, let me preface it by saying that Mohammed bin Salman is on a trip to rehabilitate his image after the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and most people think he was implicated in it. So he's willing to say what his hosts want to hear. And general statements condemning terrorism is a part of that strategy. But going back to your question, Pakistan is strategically very important to Saudi Arabia and has been for some time. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia share certain goals regarding Afghanistan, particularly now that the United States seems to be on the cusp of withdrawal, military withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the Taliban may stage or are likely to stage a comeback as a result. And Pakistan is the patron of the Taliban. So the Saudis want, obviously, to cultivate Pakistan in relation to Afghanistan, because they also fear that once the Americans withdraw, the Iranian influence may increase, particularly through its allies amongst the Hazaras and the Tajiks. So that's one thing. The other thing, of course, is the big elephant in the room as far as Saudis are concerned is Iran itself. They are in a very major way in competition with, engaged in a cold war with Iran throughout West Asia, from Syria to Yemen.
Right.
And to them, Pakistan is, they see Pakistan also as a strategic partner in the effort to contain Iran. For ideological reasons, because the Pakistani ideology, as it becomes increasingly more Sunni fundamentalist, turns to be anti-Shia. And also because the Iranians are very skeptical about Pakistan, and they have said so openly most recently after the attack on the Revolutionary Guards.
Just to get in Jonna Blanks at this point, Jonna, what do you feel are the priorities for Saudi Arabia vis-a-vis its foreign policy currently? Mohammed Ayub very correctly put it that right now the Saudi Crown Prince wants to refurbish his visit after the Jamal Khashoggi affair. What do you think and where do you feel India fits in the entire game of things?
Yes, well, first, I very much agree with Dr. Ayub and with the ambassador. I think they both have laid it out quite well. I think that it's important for India to understand that Saudi Arabia is not really looking out for the interests of India here. Saudi Arabia has a convergence of interests with Pakistan, and particularly with a number of very violent terrorist groups within Pakistan, especially Lashkar-e-Taiba, which follows the al-Hadith ideology that is often propagated by Saudi funders. So the idea that Mohammed bin Salman would ever be truly interested in reining in some of these groups against the interests of ISI and of his own nation, I think is a little bit of a pipe dream for India.
India's options with Saudi Arabia will be limited. If that is the case, what real options do we have in the region? Iran has summoned the Pakistani envoy over the death of 27 IRG core members. Afghanistan summoned the Pakistani envoy over a statement that there will be an impact on the peace process if there is retaliation over the Pulwama attacks from the Indian side. Who are our friends in the region, so to say, right now, and how much support can we expect from all the countries in the region?
Look, if all the countries, US is withdrawing from the area, then essentially all countries are going back to what was there before 9/11, which is Saudi Arabia, Emirates. They were the two countries which had received the Taliban ambassador then. The only additionality is Qatar, where the Taliban office is there. But essentially, India will have to gravitate towards Iran, and that starts then affecting your relationship with the US. But that becomes your natural ally, because don't forget, immediately before Pulwama, the attack you're talking about deliberately took place in the same form. It was a car bomb against the IRGC, and that was Pakistan ingratiating itself to Saudi Arabia before the Crown Prince arrived, because Pakistan is the only nuclear weapon possessing Islamic country, and that is the guarantee that Saudis have.
Final comments, 20 seconds each to all our panelists. Jonah Blank, what do you feel should be the way forward for India diplomatically? Which will be the best option?
I think India should try to get Mohammed bin Sultan to put as much pressure on Pakistan as he can, while being very aware that the relationship with Iran is probably going to be more important for India, and not expecting MBS to do anything more than he realistically is going to be willing to do.
All right. Ambassador Casey Singh, what do you feel will be the best diplomatic policy moving forward?
I think we're doing the right thing. We've spoken to everyone. If nothing else, we've neutralized Saudi Arabia. So even if we take some action, they will not be proactive in running to Pakistan's help or having the Islamic Organization of Islamic Conference take it up, etc.
Mohammed Ayub, what do you think will be the best prescription for India when it comes to Pak-sponsored terror? We have been a victim for many years now. What is the long-term strategy that India should have?
I think the best long-term strategy is deterrence, and this deterrence can only be made concrete by a major military operation that does harm to the Pakistani military infrastructure. Now, this could snowball, so we have to be careful about it. But I don't see how diplomatic pressure. I mean, everybody, when you talk about terrorism and bring it to the notice of the international community, everybody says we sympathize with you, terrorism is bad, and so on and so forth. But all that all that doesn't amount to much. I think as victims of terrorism, if we consider ourselves to be victims of terrorism, we have to take some concrete action that would have a lasting impact on the Pakistani psyche.
All right, we'll have to take concrete action. And Ambassador Trigunayat, we're in election season. Do you think we'll need silent diplomacy in the days to come? Just 10 seconds. I've completely run out of time.
No, I think as Ambassador Casey Singh also said, we are doing the right things and we continue to do so, irrespective of the elections or not.
Right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. This is going to be a tough diplomatic campaign for India in the days to come.
While away from diplomacy, India and Saudi Arabia also signed 5 MOUs to strengthen the business relationship. Saudi Aramco, that's the big one, is in talks with Reliance Industries and others to invest in India. Let's go across to Anshu Sharma to wrap up the business outcomes of the Crown Prince's visit.
Here at the Saudi-India Forum, the mood is upbeat from Saudi Arab, which says that the sky is the limit for investment. It's looking for synergy not only for crude oil supply as marketer, but also synergies in manufacturing, power, healthcare, education and skill development.
Sky is the limit, and I don't like limiting partnerships. You know, the leadership of both countries are here today forging a new chapter, building on deeply rooted bilateral trade. So why to limit it? Saudi Arabia is not just looking about the value or the money. We're looking for the expertise and the skills that India can bring and help us enrich and help us diversify the economy.
Despite challenges to land acquisition for the mega refinery in India, where Saudi Aramco and ADNOC are partners, Saudi Aramco is quite upbeat and optimistic on its investment in the mega refinery.
We remain positive on our investment in India. We are working with our partners who are assuring us that things are progressing well. So we are very optimistic. We are looking at other opportunities. India, as I said, is an investment priority for Saudi Aramco. There is a lot of growth potential. I highlighted a lot of the growth potential in India. And we are looking at additional investment in India. So we are in discussion with other companies as well.
Including Reliance Industries.
Including Reliance and others.
After December decision of OPEC to cut 1.2 million barrels per day, OPEC's partner Saudi Arab says that it will soon consult and calibrate supply decision.
We will consult and we will calibrate our supply plans for the second half of the year. So April will be an important line post on the journey for market stability.
The IT industry body NASSCOM has done away with its annual industry guidance. The decision was announced earlier today at the ongoing NASSCOM Technology and Leadership Forum 2019. Kritika Saxena and Mugdha Varia report on the mood and the key takeaways from the gathering of India's top IT CEOs. Take a look.
In a huge break from tradition, NASSCOM has stopped giving guidance for FY20, and the reason is clear. The kind of uncertainties that are prevalent in the global economic environment are large, and as a result of that, NASSCOM believes that giving a guidance is no longer a clear picture about outlook. Hence, NASSCOM is now going to be releasing CEO surveys. So for FY19, the industry has done better than expected. NASSCOM had guidance 7 to 9% and the growth has been 9.2%. But as far as the outlook is concerned, the CEO survey finds that 51% CEOs believe that 2019 will be either just like 2018 in terms of performance or marginally lesser, and 49% believe that it could be slightly better.
The way we've measured success is totally changing. So in the past, we have used a certain way to look at what success is and therefore make the projections in terms of guidance. And I just feel that that is not apt anymore. That is not right anymore. So that's the reason we are not doing what we did in the past. What we are now looking at is trying to understand the right way to predict the future.
I think we're just pointing out that the macroeconomic environment, one doesn't know how it will pan out. The US is going to grow slower this year compared to last year, as we talked about. The uncertainty on Brexit, the uncertainty on the growth of continental Europe, and those are scenarios that companies have to deal with and prepare for.
We expect to continue to grow at a good speed above the market, 5.5% to 8% of growth. We continue to improve our margins. We expect to be close or hit our midterm guidance in terms of profitability. So yes, we continue to stay bullish for 2019 as well.
Society impact of AI is very, very high, and therefore we are passionately working on it. On organizations, both as customers and users of AI capabilities, but also as a new area of opportunity. We today have 3,000 cloud-ready partners in the country. Now, these are 3,000 companies who are helping do business in the cloud. That means more jobs, that means more entrepreneurship, that just means a different way of doing things.
It is evident that Indian IT is bracing for tough times. All players are working hard to reskill and invest in preparing for the uncertain times around the corner. In Mumbai with Kritika Saxena, Mugdha Varia.
Well, my colleague Mugdha Warrior also caught up with the Information Technology Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad. Here's a slice of that conversation.
What about the concerns of some of these global companies? I mean, have they expressed these concerns, and how is the government looking?
India will maintain its sovereignty, data sovereignty. Be very clear about it.
And when you talked about these social media platforms, even they are concerned about it.
Let me just allow one thing. We respect social media. We respect freedom. Okay? But certain norms will have to be followed by them, which is there in the Constitution. That's all I have to say. I always believe in self-control, but you don't create a situation where people are equally troubled. A lot of campaign, young girls being trolled, other people are being trolled. So I have said, instead of us, the concerned social media should take care of these concerns. That's very important. I don't want the government to interfere, but if violence will be promoted, if radicalism will be promoted, if terrorism will be promoted, the government has a duty to intervene to save the life of the people. That's how I see it.
Sir, will some of these policies come before the elections, or will it come only after the elections on data protection?
Election. Already I have said that electronic policy has come, software also. We'll try to bring in data protection, but if it comes after election, that is not a problem. But if there are certain more issues to be discussed, we are debating that. But what is important is, we are having the widest consultation possible. It was online, the stakeholder consultations. Justice Krishna also did the consultation as the chairman of the committee. In case of this electronic policy, you heard $1 trillion economy, where we are going to give job to about 65 lakh people in the coming 5 to 6 years, $1 trillion economy. There also the widest consultation possible. Yesterday, the electronic policy, again the widest consultation possible. Therefore, consultation takes some time, so that no one should complain, I was not heard. But as a minister, I want to assure that the social media company shall not be allowed to abuse the data of Indians to influence the elections.
Well, former CEO of Unilever, Paul Polman, also spoke to Mugdha at the NASSCOM summit. Here's an excerpt.
It was the idea of the current management, Sanjeev Mehta, who is very capably running our HUL business here as CEO and chairman, had actually the idea to buy them. It cost me a little bit of money, I agree with that, but I also have so much confidence in our people in HUL that have consistently delivered and over-delivered that without any doubt they will make this brand also more successful than its previous owners, and that's obviously the idea. And it fits very well with our food business. You have the Brew brand, which is very well established. You have the Kisan brand, which is a very successful brand. And most importantly, we have very, very good people here. That gives me confidence that we will.
So when do you see HUL's revenue contribution growing beyond 10% for Unilever globally?
Sorry, I didn't.
HUL's, I think, revenue contribution is still below 10% globally for Unilever. Do you see that of HUL? Yes.
Yeah, because the world is big, obviously, but there is no reason. With the current growth rates, we've more than doubled our business in my tenure here as well, and there's no reason why we cannot continue on that trajectory. The Indian economy is helping. It's one of the best performing economies in the world, so that's a good thing. There's still many people that need to be lifted out of poverty, which is what we tend to focus on. That's a very good thing. If the rural areas, which is still 70% of India, get a little bit more prosperous, companies like ours will benefit from that. And we've had a consistent, strong performance that you've also seen in the share price of HUL, which has been one of the best performing shares in the Indian stock market. So most people tend to agree with what we are doing. So I would say don't be too eager, stay on the trajectory, and the numbers will ultimately get there.
So you see FMCG, demand growing in India, and there were some rural shops announced by the government in the budget. So do you see that, helping the FMCG sector?
Yeah, I actually saw that this morning, and obviously, undoubtedly more will be announced with the elections coming up. So, but that will all help. The more we lift people out of poverty and put infrastructure there and help the farmers with improving their income, that will directly benefit companies like ours who deal with the bottom of the pyramid. No question about it.
Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has adjourned the 33rd meeting of the GST Council to the 24th of February as some opposition-ruled states sought a physical meeting. The finance ministers of these states have argued that decisions on crucial issues like real estate and lottery should not be taken at a meeting held through video conferencing. In fact, Delhi's Finance Minister Manish Sisodia said that there was major disagreement on both the issues of real estate as well as lottery. Let's hear out Finance Minister Arun Jaitley on the decision to adjourn the council meeting for today.
Some of the states wanted a meeting where members are physically present. Keeping the idea of consensus in mind, I adjourned the meeting to Sunday so that a physical meeting can be held and the same issue can be discussed on Sunday.
We're now joined by the Finance Minister of Punjab, Manpreet Singh Badal, and we'll also be joined by the Finance Minister of Kerala, Thomas Isaac. Mr. Badal, if I could come to you, sir, was the meeting adjourned primarily because state finance ministers wanted to be physically present and didn't want these two issues to be discussed via video conference? Or is there difference of opinion even on the recommendations of the GOM that has submitted its recommendations on real estate and lottery?
Well, I must applaud the Union Finance Minister, Mr. Jaitley, and I think he is a true Democrat. And so when we actually put forward this proposition, Dr. Amit Mitra and Mr. Thomas Isaac, so he actually acceded to this request. And as far as Punjab is concerned, this is a typical proposal that has noble intentions, but it has been presented. It was presented in a manner which was unacceptable. So I'm conscious that the elections are around the corner. But we can't compromise on some basics that I find will stand compromise if we were to accord approval to this, in this video conference meeting. So, I'm happy that we're going to meet again. There are a lot of rough edges which need to be sorted out. It was a half-baked proposal. In fact, even what rate it is going to be, it has left it to the fitment committee. So how can the fitment committee decide anything without the council, without it being brought in front of the council? So things like that. So I'm happy that we're meeting again on Sunday, and hopefully this is a major decision. And and as I said in my last interview with you, that GST Council is not a political forum. This is a place where we decide what is in the highest interest of India.
There is a long list of issues where there is no agreement at this point in time, or at least there are a large number of disagreements on several of those issues. So are you hopeful of being able to arrive at a conclusive decision with respect to real estate on the 24th?
Now there are two issues, real estate and lottery. Now, as regards the real estate, I am very hopeful we will be able to come to a consensus, because there is a history of GST. There have been so many ideological different perspectives and so on. We have been able to thrash out the discussions. So that should be open. And I think having agreed that sector needs incentivization, well, the give and take, we should be able to reach a kind of consensus. But regarding lottery, there can be no consensus whatsoever. Because I have very serious objection to the way the GM has made producers.
I would imagine that's not a priority.
When I was sick, hospitalized, that's not a priority. So why try to push through along with the reality sector tax on lotteries, on which there are very cleavage which cannot be compromised at all, and then try to push that also through?
Fair point.
I think that is not right. That's not fair. That is not in the spirit of GST Council's functioning.
Mr. Badal, I'll end by asking you very specifically, sir, what will be the top priority items where you would hope that the GST Council will be able to converge? Mr. Isaac feels confident of being able to push this through on the 24th.
Well, Shireen, the basic principle is whether you have a good law, bad law, law must be very, very clear. It should not be ambiguous. It should not be left open to interpretation. There should not be chaos, litigation. So there are so many questions which we need to ask, Union FM and the government. So as long as, those doubts are cleared and we it can be a bad law. We don't mind making a bad law as long as it's clear. But at the moment, it is half-baked, and you cannot leave anything which the fitment committee will decide later. You can't, whatever the proposals
Fair
are,
point.
they must be brought in front of the council, that's all. I have a very clear mantra. What is good for India is good for Punjab. So if anything is good for India, we normally agree to it.
Okay.
We don't play politics over it.
Okay, all right.
See,
all right, so let's see whether we finally can arrive.
I am full agreement with Manpreet on the issue. Say, I am in full agreement with the issues raised by Manpreet. It was a fantastic presentation he gave, raising the issues related to the land value and so on. And his concern was shared by everybody. And I realized that the officials couldn't respond to the issues that he had raised. And he's perfectly right. It's not something to be left to the Fitment Committee to sort out. Fitment Committee should come to the council when they meet on 21st with concrete sessions, and then we'll discuss.
Fair point.
I am hopeful through discussion we will move to a kind of understanding if people take a liberal accommodative stand.
Okay, if people take a liberal accommodative stand and the Fitment Committee comes back with a clear roadmap and addresses the concerns raised by members of the GST Council. Manpreet Badal, Thomas Isaac, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18.
Well, the Aero India show kicked off in Bengaluru today under the shadow of the tragic death of Surya Kiran pilot Wing Commander Sahil Gandhi yesterday. Now, a flypast was conducted by Jaguar, Tejas and Sukhoi 30 aircraft in the missing man formation in his honor. Now, several aircraft are on display at the show, including the indigenous Tejas fighter Sukhoi Su-30, Rafale, the Lockheed Martin F-16 Fighting Falcon and the F-18 Super Hornet. My colleague Jude Seth filed this report.
It's mine.
Despite the pomp and show that usually takes pride of place every Aero India, the air show this year had one pertinent question. How effective was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India plan, which closes in on 4 years now? Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman believed she had the answers.
150 contracts worth about 127,500 crores have been signed with Indian vendors for procurement of defence equipment for the armed forces. And this is possible within India within the 3-4 years that I'm referring to. And again, during the last 4 years, till the current financial year, again up to October 2018, government has accorded acceptance of necessity to 164 proposals worth 2,79,950 crores approximately under the Buy India, Indian IDDM, Buy Indian and also Buy and Make India or Make in India categories.
Amidst breathtaking aerobatic displays, Aero India 2019 lived up to what it was always meant to be, and that is a platform for cool new product launches. Leading the charge, of course, was Airbus, showcasing its brand new wide-body aircraft, while Lockheed Martin also showcased its F-21 specifically designed for the Indian Air Force.
It's an incredible aircraft. It's a brand new platform. We are extremely excited about this aircraft. In fact, this is a testbed aircraft with with our chief test pilot that has come in. So we are so excited about it. You know, it has the new engines. Look at the beautiful wings that it has, extremely aerodynamic. We also have the new cockpit, the airspace cabin. It's over 20% fuel efficient than the previous versions. Now, you know, let me tell you the kicker which I'm most excited about. Many parts of this aircraft were designed right here in Bangalore.
So it's an all-new aircraft. And I think in the Indian context, for Tata being our strategic partner, we look forward to having this unique configuration only for India. The F-16 is the lowest cost single-engine aircraft there is. Much lower, 30 to 40% lower than twin-engine aircraft. And as you correctly say, it's not only the acquisition cost, it's the life cycle costs and the operational costs that matter. And I think this is the most competitive offer there is.
But there were some familiar questions that needed to be asked of defence manufacturers, like if the government was doing enough to expedite existing defence procurement deals.
I mean, I don't know where it stands because I don't make those decisions.
Yeah, we have put in our bid along with Tata's and General Dynamics as a consortium.
Do you foresee a timeline for its completion?
You know, that's a difficult question to answer because it's a big program, and I think there is now a clear-cut direction from the government that many of these big programs are going to move into strategic partnership. Our trials have been over for the last 1.5 years, the trials that we did with DRDO. Now we are going to start, we have started the Army-assisted trials. That will now go on through this year. Hopefully, summer trials in Pokhran and winter trials in Doklam or Sikkim or somewhere.
But at the end of day one fact was amply clear. There's a massive market for defense manufacturing in India, which has brought the might of the world's defense technology to our very doorstep. Reporting from the Yelahanka Air Force Base in Bengaluru, this is Jude Sanad.
Well, that's all we have time for. It's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.